So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through Lawrence Young. How many people know Lawrence Young? Okay, Lawrence Young is the chief economist for NAR. He is a really super intelligent guy who loves numbers a lot more than anybody in this room. So this report, I pared it down by over half. Okay? So we're going to do the Cliff Notes layman's terms version of what he presented. But this was presented, you can see, at the Leadership Summit in Chicago just a few days ago, August 21st of this year, 2012. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go through and kind of digest this piece. So if you guys will flip with me to the first page, you see nation's mobility rate. Now what's a mobility rate? Why is it important? What's that? How often people move, what movement is occurring in the country, okay? At a former company did relocation, and so I got very familiar with this job, or this metric, because a lot of the big companies track this metric, okay? Moving companies, property management companies, you name the industry that's affected by this, but if people are moving, business is good. If people aren't moving, business isn't good, okay? So they want to see how many people are moving. What you can see is what's happened to the nation's mobility rate. Down from 18% to 12%. So at a high in the late 80s, early 90s to today, we're down to 12%. Okay? Now this is something crucial I want you to see. Any distance. Some people would say, well, maybe that's just people moving over a certain amount of miles and that's why it's a small number. This is any distance. Okay? So it's not great, it's not bad, this is not a doom and gloom presentation, but it just is. Okay? So mobility rate is down. That's one of the challenges we face. If you flip to the next page. Existing home sales recovery. Now this is some good news. Here he went back clear to 2005. He showed you these are in millions of units. You can see in 2005, a little over 7 million units. Excuse me. You can see down in 2012, he's estimating up a bit from 2011. He thinks we'll end somewhere between 4.5 and 4.6. Okay? So what does that mean to you guys on a local level? Real estate's local, I get that. How do we take this number, or what does this mean to you and your business? Why is this important that we're going through this right now?
It's trending up.
It's trending up.
Bottomed out.
We see a bottom. Now, I'm not confident enough to say that it's going to be a huge, massive recovery, but it's a positive sign showing that we found, hopefully, the basement floor, and we're working our way back up to the first floor, okay? Second, this is the time of year I'm hoping that you are all starting to think about your business plan and your projections for next year. We're doing it on a company level. We have to project out for expenses for everything we do. Where do we think the business is going to be at? We predicted in November of last year that this year wasn't going to be a whole lot different than last year, and guess what? It's not. Okay, next year isn't going to be that much different. It's going to be a little bit better, but it's not going to be much. The way we do that, we make those predictions is based on these numbers. So that's why I'm bringing them to you, because it's important that you know what you can plan on next year. Okay? The next page, titled Investors in the Market. Now this is interesting. So here NAR, the stats department, research department, NAR took these numbers, they trended them from 2005 to the estimate where they think 2012 is going to end, and they looked at investor sales versus owner-occupant sales. What's the difference? What jumps out at you? What's that? Exactly. Okay, look, what shape is that trend line making on the investors? It's smiling because they're making money. Okay? There is more investor activity and traction in the market right now than we've seen in years, clear back through 2008. Okay? What is that also an indicator of historically? Do investors buy when it's at the low point or when it's at the high point? Low point. So that makes another case that we're at the bottom, we're trending up, investors are putting their money and their confidence back in the market. Okay, that's a good thing. Challenge, what's flat? Owner-occupant. Okay? So it doesn't mean we aren't having sales, it doesn't mean we don't work with those people, but where's the market of the moment? What is this telling us? Investors. Okay? That's the theme I'm talking about. The blue book, the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. There's PowerPoint presentations done for you where you can hold real estate investment seminars. You can do workshops to investors and you don't have to be an expert at it. You just follow the PowerPoint and give them a book. Okay? So lots of opportunities, that's there, but just keep that in mind. We're going to talk more about that. Next page, investors seeing rising rent. This I thought was really interesting. This shows percent change from 1 year ago, clear back through January of 2000. Look what rents are doing. So why would the rental market be better right now? Why is it up? Why are rents up? Because what? Homeowners are down why? They're not buying, or they were former homeowners
They can't buy.
who can't buy because of a short sale or foreclosure. Okay? Investors see that. I don't know how many of you guys are in the rental market, but if you're looking at the rental market right now, it's nuts. You can put it out on Craigslist and your phone does not stop ringing if you have a place for rent. It's absolutely amazing. Okay? There are a lot of qualified people out there who want to rent who can't qualify to buy right now. So rental rates continue to go up. Okay? This is really, really, really important. Now, one thing I want to point out, you can see underneath the title, they're not deterred by the 3.8% healthcare tax on rental income. If there's one thing in 2012 that's been the most misunderstood piece of information from Washington, D.C. is the effect of the health care. And this is not a political statement. I'm not saying I'm for or against it. What I'm saying is how it affects agents, how it affects our industry is very misunderstood. So I'm going to send an email out after this with NARs. They did very good point by point study of how it affects our industry. Now that's good for you guys, but it's also good if you get questions from your homeowners, you can pass that along, and you're not the one making the claim. You're passing along information. So bottom line, I don't think that's going to have a huge effect on them because rental market's so good and rental rates keep going up. So that's something. These are also all really good slides to use if you're talking to somebody about becoming an investor. What do we want to take to them? We've got to build a case, right? We've got to take data to them. We have to show them why this is a good opportunity for them to become an investor or get back into investing. The next page, shadow inventory. And we've all heard about shadow inventory multiple times. It's the big buzzword this year and last year, right? How many people, is there anybody that's not heard of shadow inventory? Okay, so shadow inventory is the doom and gloom. It was what everyone talked about was the big unforeseen next wave of foreclosure properties the banks hadn't put on the market, and boy, as soon as they hit, we are all in trouble. Now, it did exist, and it still does, but what we're seeing is as they're tracking it, what's happening? It's starting to fall. Something really interesting to note. You guys remember the robo signing scandal where they froze foreclosures and short sales? Everybody remember that in the most recent history, okay? There were a few select states that did not stop or halt those processes or procedures as they was going through the court battle. You're aware that a lot of the states said no more of those can go through until we get to the court to tell us how this is supposed to work out. Okay? There were a few states that didn't halt those and said, we'll let the cards fall where they may, we're going to keep going forward. The states that kept it going took care of their shadow inventory property. The reason we still have shadow inventory in a lot of those big states, and the reason those states that we all know the states I'm talking about are still highly affected, is because they were the ones that stopped those proceedings. So they've essentially wasted 18 months of getting rid of those properties. The good news, though, is that it's trending down. So that should help, over time, continue to get our pricing back in check nationwide. You can see, though, through 2014, it's still at 8%. So it's not going to go away anytime soon. We're not going to be done with shadow inventory overnight, but it's trending the right way. So that's also good news for us in our industry. Next page, housing starts. This is where I'm hoping you guys get really excited. This is the opportunity that we're talking about. Now you look at this graph. Everybody on this page with me. You look at this graph, it goes back to what month and what year? January 2000, okay? The line you see that says long-term average is a 50-year average. That means it's very statistically significant. It's not a 2-year blip. It's not as a result of anything. It's not affected by anything. That is the 50-year average, okay? What does this tell you just by looking at it? Way below. We are going to have a shortage. Are you guys already seeing that in some price points and types of property? It's going to get worse before it gets better, okay? That's opportunity. You guys you're following me? Okay? So this is also, could be, potentially, I'm not telling you what to do, of course, but I'm telling you this might be a great thing to talk about with sellers. How could you use it with the seller? Okay? Perfect. So creating urgency. Did everybody hear that? Okay? So sell now before the inventory comes back. There's opportunity in this market because there's fewer things going on here. There's fewer starts. I see it locally. New construction used to be the best bet. Guess what the builders are doing to their prices?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but over the course of the last 4 months, every builder in town has incrementally started ratcheting their prices up. Very small, so it's not hugely noticeable. It's not going to kill a deal with anybody. But if you look back, you're going to see that prices are starting to dial up in new construction. And now, for the first time in a long time, new construction is not always a better value. Now, existing construction, existing homes, sometimes can be a better choice. Okay? That's something we haven't seen in a while. Again, that's the movement or the shift in the market that we're seeing. So that's something to keep in mind. We've been under the long-term average since 2007. If we keep under the average, that is going to make the demand that much bigger and the supply that much shorter. So that creates opportunity for us. Okay? The next one, the monthly pending home sales index. Now this is interesting because you guys remember the home buyer tax credit. The first version, gap, second version. That's exactly what this graph shows. Okay? Look what happened to the pending index between July of, let's say August of 2009 and just before July 2010. You see that big dip? Okay? One of the biggest criticisms of that whole program, and I think it's justified here, is that we were borrowing buyers from the future. Okay? We were taking people that had no intention or ability to buy now, and they were going to, more than likely a year or 2 years down the road, we were going to say, come here and buy now. Okay? We were artificially inflating the market. We were artificially trying to prop it up to keep the machine running, which it is what it is, but you can see between the dip. Look what happened after the last credit went up. What happened?
Died.
How many of you were in the business at that point? You feel it? I mean, all of a sudden it seemed like the phones just stopped. Okay? Now we're coming back from that, and that's what's good. Look at the level we've come back to in that short amount of time. It doesn't mean it wasn't painful, but again, it's positive. We're getting back to the levels that we were at when we had those tax credits. And this is organic. This is not artificial this time. That's the important part to look at. Okay? So that's another reason we should be smiling. Now, if you flip the page, we're going to look briefly at commercial real estate. Why? I know you guys all do residential. There's a few people in here who do commercial. But as residential agents, why is it important for you guys to at least have a generic understanding of what's happening in the commercial market? Brings jobs. Thank you. Exactly. Okay? What do we need more of? Jobs. Because if we have more jobs, we get more buyers. People will move to an area. People have more disposable income. People can upgrade a house. Without the commercial, we don't have a lot of the things we need for our market to be strong. So what we also know, and TJ, you tell me if I'm wrong, but what I've heard is that commercial typically trends a year to a year and a half behind residential. Have you guys heard something similar to that?
This chart proves that. If you look at 2007, was their high.
Exactly.
As to ours.
So again, it's a great way to see, to get a pulse on the market. Now, we don't have a crystal ball, but there's a number of these things we can look at on a regular basis, made available to us through NAR, that we can have a pretty good idea of where we're going. Okay? So this is really, really important. Commercial starting to come back. That tells me that if that market's getting stronger, if that segment of the market's getting stronger, our business is going to continue to be a strong business. We're going to have at least a strong foundation because there'll be more jobs created. Now, if you flip the page, realtors involved in smaller deals. Now, this is interesting. This is showing you that the value of the most recent sales transactions. They took a lot of these agents and they said, nationwide, NAR did a poll, and they said, okay, of the most recent deal you just closed, what's the value of the deal? And that's the numbers you see reflected there. The point he was making is it's disproportionate for $1 million or less. You guys see that, how the numbers bear that out. So a disproportionate amount of the total most recent sales were $1 million or less. And we're talking commercial, remember. Now he says why that's important on the right-hand side. Small deals need to occur for trying out new entrepreneurial ideas. One source of economic mobility. Without innovation, we wouldn't have Starbucks, we wouldn't have Dell, we wouldn't have Apple, we wouldn't have all these companies that all started out with commercial deals $1 million or less. So that, from a national level, from a policy level, is something that a lot of the analysts look at as well. So that's a good sign. We're starting to see that build back up in that base. So now we go to the economy. This is the fun part. This is where you all get really excited. How many people know what GDP is? Somebody tell me what GDP is.
Gross domestic product.
Gross domestic product. Now that's what Lauren Young would say. How would you tell a person on the street that you're walking by and you're getting coffee? How would you explain what it is? What is it really?
It's kind of a metric of what they use of how much our economy is producing.
Yes. Did everybody hear that? So essentially what GDP is, it's the combination of the goods and the services created in a given time period. And GDP is always evaluated month over month, quarter over quarter, or year over year. It's a comparison between 2 times. Okay? And it's generally thought to be a good indicator of the health of our economy. So this is what's interesting. You can see that obviously 2009 was fun. 2010 came back up, and we're gradually starting to work our way back up. It's very slow, but again, it's for the most part organic and not artificially inflated, which should mean a longer-term recovery. So the next page, this backs up what we were talking about, payroll jobs changes. How many people turn on the news and hear something about the jobs report every night? Why is that such a hot button right now, other than the fact that we're in election season? If jobs are being created, is that a good thing or a bad thing for the economy? Also an indicator of the general health of the economy. Jobs are where this economy will rise or fall. So you can see again, 2008 and 2009 were really fun news. That's when everyone was contracting and trying to brace for impact just before they hit the ground. And then all of a sudden, 2010, 11, we're starting to see some gradual upticks. Nothing crazy, nothing out, fast out of the gates. But I'm hoping, for us, we're counting on the fact that that's going to be sustainable long term. So those are good numbers. Next page. Federal budget deficit. Again, not a political statement, it just is. So that's going to be a challenge. It's something we're going to have to watch, because that could push up the borrowing costs. How many people believe that rates are going to stay low in 2013, at the same place they're at now? How many people believe that they're going to have to bring them up? Even if it's small incremental raises, how many people believe they're going to have to bring them up? Okay? I don't know about you, but grocery shopping, I'm experiencing inflation. So if we don't start bringing rates up, I'm talking an eighth or a tenth of a point at a time, inflation is going to be even worse than it is now. So I'm banking on, I could be completely wrong, my prediction is in 2013, and Matt, you can weigh in on this, they're going to raise it small little bits. That's one of the only ways they have left to counter inflation. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how it plays out, but that's what Lawrence really spent a ton of time in his talk on, was this is one of the biggest factors that's going to affect our industry. Because it affects so much else. It has tentacles into everything else that we do, everybody that we service. Okay? So the next page, impact of the deficit. The mortgage interest deduction. Okay, now RPAC. You've heard us talk about RPAC. This is one of the biggest things RPAC is doing on the Hill right now, is protecting, and they just did it this year, but it'll be up again next year. It seems like every year it's on the table, is getting rid of the mortgage interest deduction. Okay? This is what's interesting. NAR did a study, and they did all the research, and they said it has a $90 billion effect. 90 billion. That's a B. Okay, that's a huge effect. Now, why would the politicians be wanting to get rid of the mortgage interest deduction? They want the $90 billion, right? So it's a big number. It looks like it's an easy grab, but what the point he's making here, this is his opinion, is that it's not the source of the budget deficit. This has been in place for over 100 years. Okay? So that's why RPAC is so crucial for us specifically right now, because I don't know if you guys believe it or not, but if this goes away, we were going to feel that big time. We're going to feel that hard. All of a sudden, that takes a segment of people out of the equation because it just is not real for them anymore. So it's really important. I don't care if it's $1 for RPAC. I don't have a dog in the fight because I'm not selling. What I'm telling you is this is the stuff they're fighting for to protect you guys. It's really, really important that we support it. Okay?
And that's personally too, not just, most of us own homes.
Oh, most definitely.
So it's like,
It would be a significant impact personally, is what Jill's saying too. Think of the home you own, and if they take that off, it all adds up.
well, and then
Oh, I think we should
Investors
get more.
do. What's that?
We need to get more together.
Yeah.
We should get rid of that tax.
Okay, so look at the bottom. Interest rates are back to historical average. If they go back to historical average, which I don't think they're going to take them that high, this is my opinion, but if they do, he's saying a $300 billion effect in extra interest charges. Okay? That would also take a number of people out of the buying scenarios. It would not be a good thing. Okay? So we're going to flip the pages for time's sake. You'll see the World Report card. No surprise that we've been downgraded a bit. Forecast summary is the next page I want to show you. Looks like this. Make sure everybody's there before I look at it with you. This is essentially a cliff notes of the cliff notes. Okay? So as you guys are thinking on next year, as you're trying to project what you want to do next year, what you think your business will be next year, this shows you 2011 history and 2012 and 13 forecast as seen by NAR. So you can then drill it down to the local level, but this should give you a good feel as far as what NAR and people much smarter than all of us get paid to do nothing but every day look at these numbers and predict. They're going to be fairly close. Okay? It's a prediction, but they're going to be fairly close. So the next page, risks to forecast. This is where I wanted to have Matt speak to these things a little bit. So you can see Washington policy, and this is why NAR is so important too, because NAR has lobbyists on the Hill keeping a pulse on all this, so we don't have to. Okay? But they keep us aware of what's going on, and it helps us fight what's not a good thing. So QRM 20% down payment requirement. Who knows what QRM is? It's a qualified residential mortgage. Came out of the Dodd-Frank. Okay? So Matt, I'm going to give a layman's version, and you tell them from your perspective. Essentially, what it's saying is they wanted banks or lenders to have skin in the game. So it requires, there's a bunch of loopholes he's going to talk about, but it requires that lenders keep 5% of any loans that they bundle and sell as a security. Because their thought is that if the lender has 5% skin in the game, they're going to have more strict underwriting guidelines. They're going to make it a better loan with less risk because they don't want to take 5% in the shorts.
Agreed, and if we thought underwriting guidelines were tight today, imagine if that rule was in effect. So that's a big, scary gorilla in the room that even the Mortgage Bankers Association is fighting very, very hard against. One little loophole in the QRM, which is out there, is that they're saying that any loan that is backed by Freddie, Fannie, Ginnie, which is FHA or HUD, would be exempt from that requirement. So as long as you're still underwriting to the GSE's underwriting guidelines, you would be exempt. So that would be a win-win, because really every lender out there is generally writing to those standards. Where it would maybe make more of an impact is private lenders or hard money lenders, or obviously jumbo financing is still very difficult. So but the QRM is something that's definitely out there and could pose a big risk if they did enact some of these rules.
But it's something that Matt's association as a mortgage professional is watching. It's something that your association is watching as far as NAR goes. But it's something to be aware of. You need to know the term. You need to know the threat it potentially could impose, because it could have a significant impact on your livelihood. So thank you. I want to make sure I was explaining that correctly. So then the last two pages, you're going to see these two pictures. And this I thought was pretty funny. So this was Lawrence. You got to remember, this isn't Chicago. This is a huge room. This is filled with all kinds of brainy numbers, real estate investor people, bankers, things like that, right? So he puts this up on the screen and he's asking, what's the difference between these two pictures? Answers on the next page. The baton shows you that one is a relay or a team event. The other is an individual. Studies show faster swim and relay versus individual events, extra effort for the team. So when we're doing something on our own, we don't have as much oomph in us. We don't have maybe that extra gear to shift into. Whereas if we have a team and we're going to be working for and helping everyone else on the team, we put in the extra effort. We find that extra ounce of energy. So I thought that was interesting. Now his last slide that he wrapped it up with on the back is your effort to the team. So this is really, and this is a hint, this is what you're going to see from NAR in 2013. This is really their initiative. It's get America moving again. We've got to get that mobility rate up again. Now it's going to be helped because there's commercial deals going. That means people are building. The payroll things are up. All the signs we saw, it should be moving in that direction. But it comes down to us telling the story, because NAR sits in their little office in Washington, D.C. They're not in Coeur d'Alene. They're not on the phone with your clients. They're not sending a whole book to tell people about a potential opportunity. Your job is to have the conversations and make people think. Your job is to have the conversations and show people the opportunities and the possibilities. So that's what he's getting at with this.